In this video, you will learn how to create targets that make learning clear for students. Strong targets also help teachers make better and more efficient instructional decisions. Providing a clear and understandable vision of learning is assessment for learning strategy number 1. The first step in creating assessments is to get clear about what we're teaching. We have standards for most disciplines, but the standards, without some analysis, are far from clear. The standards are filled with both specific academic vocabulary and abstract terms that need to be defined. Many standards are also complex, identifying multiple qualities of the expected learning. To get clear about what we will teach and assess, we must analyze standards using the deconstruction process. The deconstruction process allows us to take standards and turn them into learning targets that ensure students understand what is needed from them. Once you deconstruct, not only are your students clear about what you want, but you're clear as well and can keep your expectations consistent. We're going to go through the deconstruction process by breaking down a pretty complex goal: learning to drive a car. The first step in the deconstruction process is to consider what knowledge your students need. Verbs you could use for creating knowledge targets help students learn specific facts or vocabulary. In learning to drive a car, some knowledge targets would be identifying and explaining road signs or describing the steps for making a 3-point turn. Skill and performance targets define what the learner must be able to do or show. Shifting gears or parallel parking are examples of new skills a driver may need to learn. Reasoning targets identify the higher order thinking skills students need to develop. Once I teach a few basics about driving, most of the time I spend with a new driver is helping her make good decisions as she drives. Products represent how a student has synthesized their new learning. They are also created to share information meaningfully with others. So as I think about my major goal of teaching someone to drive, what would make a good product? A brochure of the driving rules? A movie of the new drivers showing off different driving maneuvers? This brings up an important point in the deconstruction process. Not all of these steps are needed to deconstruct a standard. If I am focused on helping someone learn how to drive, creating a product to share information with others doesn't fit. So in this example, I would not have any product targets. Dispositions are the attitudes or habits that students apply to be successful in their new learning. When I taught my daughter how to drive, it became clear that we needed to work on a disposition of being a confident driver. She would pull up to the stop sign, look left and right and left again, and then, instead of pulling out because she could safely do so, she would ask, "Should I go?" She needed to learn how to be confident by realizing when she followed the rules of the road, she could proceed. Working on her disposition, she also had to realize that the hesitation and second guessing put her more at risk as a driver. Once you have deconstructed your standards, reevaluate. Learning targets should represent only the new learning you'll focus on, so statements that represent previously learned material don't need a target statement. For instance, if I'm focusing on the teaching behind the wheel, I probably don't need a target on road signs because that would have been learned earlier and I expect the driver ready to recognize these signs as she drives. This is also a good time to think about what you can manage in your instruction. By deconstructing your standard, perhaps you'll find you'll want to focus on some of the targets for now and leave others for another time, like parallel parking. Finally, make sure that your targets are written in ways that both you and your students can understand. Deconstructing standards is the process you use to get clear about the learning you expect from students. Once you're clear about your targets, you'll know what you're looking for when it's time to evaluate how well students have acquired new learning. It's true that the deconstruction process takes time, but when we take the time to think through what we want our students to know, perform, reason, produce, and the dispositions critical to that learning, We save ourselves time in the end. Deconstruction leads to stronger lessons, less misunderstanding by students, and a more efficient path to your goals.